Good morning. How are you? It's good to see you on this foggy morning. Welcome to the First Universalist Church of Yarmouth. I'm Reverend Hillary Collins Gilpatrick. I serve as the minister here. A warm welcome to all of you gathered in the sanctuary with us this morning and to our friends joining us virtually on Zoom. At First Universalist, our mission is to explore our faith, embrace this community, and to engage the world as spiritual seekers. May we take those words to heart. If this is your first time to our congregation, welcome. We invite you to fill out a yellow connection card located in front of you in your pew so that we may connect you with programs here that might be of interest to you. You can drop this yellow card in the offering plate when it's passed later in our service. Our worship this morning is multi-generational, meaning that it is a service designed for all ages and stages of our congregation. But if you're here today with a young child who might prefer to spend the next hour in a space with toys and games, our nursery and play space is located out the side door down the hallway on the left. Before we begin our service, we have a few announcements. First up, directly following our service this morning, Gwen and I will be hosting a holiday tea party for all children who want to come, have some fun, sip some tea, and eat a lot of cookies. I have a lot of cookies. It's only for children, but if you need a cookie pick-me-up, come on down. We'll meet in the gathering room and then head off to Gwen's office. And the tea party will go till about 12:15. Secondly, next Sunday is our annual solstice service and labyrinth walk, one of my favorite traditions here. Anybody else partial to the solstice labyrinth service? Yes, it is wonderful. And a very, very, very important note about our solstice service: it starts at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, not 10:30 in the morning like usual. I will say it again. We will not be having a 10:30 service next week. We will be having a solstice service at sunset at 4 p.m. What time? 4 p.m. 4 p.m. And lastly, I am so happy to welcome Matt Meyer, our guest worship leader, to our sanctuary this morning. Welcome, Matt. Thanks for making the trek up from Boston. Matt Meyer is a lifelong Unitarian Universalist with a long background as a musician and worship leader for UU congregations. He lives in Boston but travels as an itinerant worship leader, bringing the good news of Unitarian Universalism to hundreds of congregations all across the country. Matt serves as the Director of Operations for Sanctuary Boston, a contemporary UU worship community with rockin' music and an engaging worship programming that meets on Wednesday evenings online and in person. And I will say, Sanctuary Boston is really quite a nourishing, uplifting scene. Matt is also a published children's book author. His story, Desmond Gets Free, won a Nautilus Award for social justice and children's fiction. And to get a copy for a child teacher or any justice maker in your life, stop by the book table after worship to purchase a copy. Friends, let's give Matt a warm welcome to our peaceful and friendly sanctuary. And I now invite you to take a deep breath with me, perhaps a stretch, and settle into this time together. Matt will lead us into worship. Thanks, Matt.
We're going to do a lot of singing together this morning, starting with our call to worship, which is a song. Your part goes like this. Call down a blessing, 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 call down. That's the whole thing. Let's try it through together again. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Beauty above us, beauty before us, beauty within us and beauty between us. So call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Love above us, love before us, love within us and love between us. So call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. Call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down a blessing, call down. And we'll continue in song with our opening hymn this morning. And we're going to try 3 songs all at the same time. So I hope you're feeling ambitious today. The first one was, some of them may be familiar to you. The first one goes like this. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Second one goes like this. Oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, how I want to be in that number when the saints go marching in. The third one was newer to me. It goes like this, and I think the words for this one and most of the rest of what we'll be singing today are in your insert. This one goes like this. I'm gonna sing, sing, sing. I'm gonna dance, dance, dance. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna dance. Hallelujah. When those gates are open wide, I'll be standing by your side. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna dance. Hallelujah. Can we try that one? I'm gonna sing, sing, sing. I'm gonna dance, dance, dance. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna dance. Hallelujah. When those gates are open wide, I'll be standing by your side. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna dance. Hallelujah. Beautiful. For all of our singing today, I invite you to do it in whatever way your spirit needs this morning. If the words elude you and you just want to hum along, that's okay. That's just as good. And if what you need this morning is to just sit in silence and soak in the sound of the room, that's okay too. That's just as good. And if what you need this morning is to rock out like you are alone in the car with your radio and dance in the aisles, that's just as good. We got space for it. All right, I invite you to rise in body or spirit. And I'll note that all of 3 of these songs come out of an African-American tradition of resilience, a tradition that is always evolving and always changing, but rooted deeply in resilience. A tradition that comes from folks looking the most difficult circumstances in the face and singing about a better world to come anyway. Whether that world comes in the next life or whether we can build it in this one is still up to us to decide. So let's take a deep breath together. We're going to start with I'm going to sing, then we'll add swing low, and then we'll add oh when the saints. You can pick whichever one you like best and just hold on to it tight, or you can go back and forth between them, or if you know another song that works well with these, just go ahead and throw it right in, okay? Here we go. I'm gonna sing, sing, sing. I'm gonna dance, dance, dance. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna dance. Hallelujah. When those gates are open wide, I'll be standing by your side. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna dance, hallelujah. Keep going. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Any of the three. When the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, how I want to be in that number when the saints go marching. Here we go, here we go. I'm gonna sing, sing, sing. I'm gonna dance, dance, dance. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna dance. Hallelujah. When those gates are open wide, I'll be standing by your side. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna dance. A little louder. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, how I want to be in that number when the saints go marching. One more time. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. You sound good. That went so much better than the looks on your faces would have led me to believe it would.
Thanks, Matt. Will you all please remain standing and join me in the words of our unison benediction, perhaps with a little more rhythm to it today. The words are printed in your order of worship. We are united in seeking to increase love with justice and to constitute a free church open to all people. Mindful of our past and drawing upon modern knowledge, we respond to the spiritual needs of persons and are devoted to the common good in community, nation, and world. We cherish the integrity of each individual and search for truth with reason as our guide. We respect differences of opinion and strive to be a democratic community. We are concerned with this world and open to the future. Thank you. You may be seated. And I invite any children of any age forward to help me light our chalice this morning. Good morning. Step right up, step right up. The bright and shining, brave symbol of Unitarian Universalism, a light to guide our way in the journeys of our lives. Good morning. How are you? It's great to see you. Welcome. We all know the words of the chalice lighting, right? Yeah, we all know the words of the chalice lighting, right? Okay, so what's going to happen? I'm going to light this flame. I'm going to hold this match right here, and we're all going to blow and make a wish. All right? You all especially. You ready? Don't tell me what the wish is. Okay. All right. Let's do it. We light our chalice in peace and friendship. All right, let's make a wish. Yep. Let it be so. Thanks, all.
Well, this morning's service is about tradition and how it evolves and changes, how we can root ourselves in tradition, but always be renovating and making it new again to be useful to us and to ground us. And this is a story I'd love to share with you all about about being rooted in our values, but being open to changing the things we find around us, because we know that the world we see around us isn't necessarily the world as we would like it to be, and that in order to build a world of justice and equity and compassion, we need to change some of the things we find lying around. Desmond the mouse lived in the most beautiful meadow in all the land. Every day, Desmond would wake with the sunrise and spend the whole day long playing in that beautiful meadow. And every night he would go to sleep right in the middle of the meadow under the beautiful starry sky above. One night, though, Desmond woke to find that it was still dark out. And so he tried to roll over and get more comfortable and go back to sleep, but something wasn't right. He could hardly move, and his tail was throbbing with pain. Reaching behind him, he felt that there was it felt like some sort of huge boulder had somehow fallen just on his tail in the middle of the meadow. So he tried pushing on this giant rock behind him with all of his little mouse strength, but it didn't budge. And when that didn't work, he tried tugging on his tail to get loose, tugging with all of his little mouse might, but it didn't work. But he just tried over and over again, pushing and tugging and tugging and pushing, pushing and tugging and tugging and pushing, till at last he was out of breath and exhausted and had just about given up when he saw another animal passing by through the meadow. It was a tall giraffe. And so he called out, "Oh, giraffe, it seems that some sort of boulder has fallen just on my tail in the middle of the meadow. If you could use your powerful legs to nudge it even just a few inches in the other direction, I could get free." Well, the giraffe laughed at Desmond, the way giraffes do. "You silly mouse," he said. "That's no boulder that's fallen on your tail in the middle of the meadow. That is an elephant that's fallen asleep on your tail in the middle of the meadow." Well, Desmond thought about that for a moment and thought, well, good news. I mean, in that case, if you could just gently wake the elephant and ask him to roll over even just a few inches in the other direction, I could get free. "I don't know about that," said the giraffe. "I mean, well, surely you know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find that it's best to remain neutral in times such as these." Well, Desmond sighed, "I do not appreciate your neutrality." The giraffe wandered away, leaving Desmond alone again. And so he tried shouting as loud as he could to wake the elephant, but his little mouse voice, it was just too far away from those giant elephant ears at the way other end of that giant elephant body. When that didn't work, he tried pushing again with all of his strength. And when the elephant didn't budge, he tried tugging on his tail to get loose, tugging again with all of his might, and he tried shouting and pushing and tugging and pushing and shouting over and over and over again, till he was out of breath and had just about given up when he saw another animal pass by. This time it was a gazelle, and so he called out, "Oh, gazelle, it seems that an elephant has fallen asleep just on my tail in the middle of the meadow. If you could just gently wake him up and ask him to roll over even just a few inches in the other direction, I could get free." "I don't know about that," said the gazelle. "I mean, surely you must know what they say about letting sleeping elephants lie. I find it's best not to get involved in other animals' business. I find it's best to remain neutral in times such as these." Well, the gazelle wandered away, and Desmond said almost to himself this time, "I do not appreciate your neutrality." One last time, Desmond tried pushing with all of his strength, and tugging with all of his might, and shouting with all of his voice, and shouting and pushing and tugging and pushing and shouting over and over and over and over again, till he was exhausted and had just about given up for the last time, when he saw another animal pass by. And this time it was another mouse. And when he called out, the mouse ran right over and introduced himself. He said, "My name is Nelson. What seems to be the problem?" Well, no sooner had Desmond explained the situation than Nelson ran all the way to the other end of that giant elephant body, and he shouted up to those giant elephant ears at the top of that giant elephant head. He said, "Excuse me! It seems you've fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of the meadow. If you could roll over just a few inches in the other direction, he could go free. Well, the elephant heard Nelson's little mouse voice way down on the ground, but I think his voice was just a bit too quiet and a bit too far away with those elephant ears at the way top of that giant elephant head. And, well, between you and me, I think maybe that elephant was just a bit too comfortable, so he didn't budge. Nelson thought about this for a moment before he ran back to Desmond, and he said, I think I might have an idea. Stay right here. Don't move. And he ran off into the grass, leaving a confused look on Desmond's face. And just when Desmond was starting to get a little worried again, he saw Nelson emerge back through the grass. But this time, he wasn't alone. He had found 3 other mouse friends, and each of them, they had each done their job. They had each found another 3 mouse friends. And the whole group of them ran all the way to the other end of that giant elephant body, and one mouse climbed up on the shoulders of another, and another mouse climbed up on her shoulders, so they made a whole mouse ladder all the way up the back of that giant elephant head. And finally, Nelson climbed up the shoulders of his friends one by one till he stood right at the opening of that giant elephant ear. And he shouted with all of his voice, "Excuse me! It seems you've fallen asleep on my friend's tail in the middle of the meadow. Roll over just a few inches so he can get free." And this time his voice was just too close and just too loud to ignore, and so the elephant said, "Mmm." But then he rolled over just a few inches in the other direction. Nelson and his friends climbed back down carefully, and they met up with Desmond, and the whole group of them, they spent the rest of that day playing together in the meadow. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, before he passed away just a couple years ago, said, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you've already taken sides. You've taken sides with the powerful and with the oppressor. If an elephant is standing on the tail of a mouse," he said, "the mouse will never appreciate your neutrality." Archbishop Tutu believed in a God who, he said, took sides, a God who took sides with the orphan and the widow and the oppressed everywhere. And as Unitarian Universalists, we may or may not share a belief in that same God, but we have covenanted to build a world of justice, equity, and compassion. And that means imagining and working to create a world very different than the one we see around us today. So it means we come together in communities like this, rooted in our traditions, to also make change and to take sides for justice, to take sides for equity and for compassion. And it means we gather together to side with love. May it be so, friends, and may we make it so.
Thanks, Matt. Friends, will you take a breath with me as we come to the time in our service that we set aside for quiet prayer and meditation? This is a time to reflect on the events of the past week or look forward to what might come in the hours and days ahead. A time to offer loving kindness to someone in need of loving kindness, or a moment to simply be here now in the fullness of this time together. Following our quiet, all will be invited to light a candle for a joy, sorrow, or concern you hold today. But first, won't you join me in taking a deep, refreshing breath in, a calming breath out, and relax into a sacred time of silence. At this time, all are welcome to come forward and light a candle.
Our tradition teaches us that sorrows shared are burdens lightened, that joys shared are magnified. Our tradition teaches us to share authentically and to listen deeply and to carry our joys and sorrows in community together. Beloveds, would you join me in prayer as we hold all of the joys and sorrows shared and still unspoken? Love, be with us as we are with each other this morning, carrying the all of it, bringing the whole of our complicated hearts, our complex lives. Some of us arrive here this morning weighed down by the burdens, large and small, health concerns for ourselves and for loved ones, hearts aching for loved ones past. Some of us carrying the sorrow of the fog keeping us indoors. Love, be with us as we are with each other, holding the griefs, that they may be lessened. Some of us arrive here this morning filled up with joys, large and small, big news and life-changing events, as well as small, glad gifts. Love, be with us as we celebrate with each other the joys. Be with us as we hold it all, the griefs and the gratitudes, the sorrows and the celebrations. Love, be with us as we are with each other this morning, rooted in our tradition of love, while imagining new futures together. May it be so. Amen.
All of our half plates this month will be shared with the Maine Community Foundation's Lewiston Auburn Area Response Fund for Victims and Families. This fund was created in response to the mass shooting events on October 25th in Lewiston, and 100% of proceeds will support victims and families from that terrible gun tragedy. Funds will be distributed in February with deep community guidance, including from Maine Community Foundation's statewide board and community steering committees. Your generosity this morning is greatly appreciated as we reach out to care for one another. For those in the sanctuary today, we'll be passing the offering plate to one another, and for those gathered with us online, you're invited to make an offering if you like, using the donate button in your order of worship, or by dropping a check in the mail. Thank you all so much for your care and generosity.
I believed in solid ground until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. All moves on in perfect motion. All is change and ever rolling ocean. I believed in solid ground until until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, till I saw the earth in motion, the wind of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, until I saw the earth in motion, in the wind of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, until I saw the earth in motion, in the wind of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean. I believe in solid ground, until I saw the earth in motion, in the winds of steady change, and the ever-rolling ocean.
Will you rise and join in our song of thanksgiving? We'll sing a cappella this morning.
From thee I receive, to thee I give, together we share, by this we. From thee I receive, to thee I give, together we share, from this we live.
You may be seated. I assured Hillary I knew that song, but it left me when the time came. Our reading this morning are two short readings about tradition. The first by Ada Maria Isasi Diaz in her book Mujerista Theology. She says, the role of tradition is to make present the wisdom of generations past, which we are then called to evaluate and apply to the present in view of our own need for survival and our need for liberation. And second, from James Luther Adams, a living tradition is not bequeathed through some law of inheritance. It must be earned, and not without dust and heat, and not without humbling grace. Our next song comes from a woman named Fea Ora Rose Toure, who is not only a songwriter and also a poet and also a playwright. She's also the founder of at least 12 organizations for civil rights and racial justice. And in addition to all of that, I don't know, I guess maybe in her spare time, her day job was that she was the first black woman judge of Alabama. She just a few years ago in retirement didn't take it easy. She was arrested for civil disobedience somewhat recently, protesting the construction of a Confederate monument. The song says, I'm going to lift my sister up. She is not heavy. If I don't lift her up, I will fall down. It goes like this. I'm gonna lift my sister up.
she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. If I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, I will fall down. Can we try that? I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. Again, I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. Again, I'm gonna lift my sister up, she is not heavy. If I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, if I don't lift her up, I will fall down.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit. We'll change to sister to brother, and we'll change the pronouns appropriately as we go. And that I'm going to lift her up, that's 3 times, if it's helpful to count. I'm going to lift my brother up. Here we go, like you mean it. I'm going to lift my brother up, he is not heavy. I'm going to lift my brother up, he is not heavy. I'm going to lift my brother up, he is not heavy. If I don't lift him up, if I don't lift him up, if I don't lift him up, I will fall down. My sibling, I'm gonna lift my sibling up, they are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sibling up, they are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my sibling up, they are not heavy. If I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, I will fall down. My neighbor, I'm gonna lift my neighbor up, they are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my neighbor up, they are not heavy. I'm gonna lift my neighbor up, they are not. If I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, I will fall down. My family, I'm gonna lift my family up, they are not heavy. I'm gonna lift family up, you're not heavy. I'm gonna lift my family up, they are not heavy. If I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, if I don't lift them up, I will fall down. Let's take a deep breath. You may be seated. It's allergy season. If you celebrate any winter holidays, you might, like me, be in the process of forming or maybe working through some to-do lists. Or maybe just making to-do lists of the to-do lists that have yet to be made. I go all in at Christmas, and I love the traditions of it. And I love the decorations and events and carols that are reliably the same every year. But despite the sameness that is so much a part of the holiday magic, there are still somehow so many darn decisions to make. My to-do list is full this year of things to schedule just a little differently or plan just a little differently than last year. And most of all, in particular, every few years there are some new friends and family participating, which always adds to the to-do list. And every few years there are also some family or friends maybe no longer with us, which adds to the weight of the to-do list. Every year at this time, I think a lot about what is the same and what's different. Now, I grew up outside of Chicago, and I live in Boston now. And when I first moved to New England, and ever since I first came to New England, my Midwestern prairie heart has been enamored with the ocean. And knowing of my fascination with the sea, my mom just last year gave me a very special present for my 40th birthday, which was that she bought me a ticket for a 4-day excursion out on the actual ocean on an actual tall ship. Maybe this is less exciting to those of you from Maine, but for me it was thrilling. This boat, which leaves out of Camden, it is the oldest schooner still on the water. It's a gaff-rigged, topsail, double-masted schooner, and I don't know what any of that means, but I assume it all just means it's a fancy way of saying it's really old-timey. And so it came to pass last summer that I was spending 4 days on this beautiful, huge old boat, built in 1871. And one morning I was sitting in this crowded little kitchen below deck, cozy as can be, and I noticed this huge wooden beam across the center of the ship. It was labeled with a carving of the original serial number for the ship. And I turned to Captain Becky and I asked, how much of the ship is original to 1871? Well, she said, putting her hand on that big wooden beam, this beam here. Also, maybe the iron bell at the top of the mast. I was floored. This oldest schooner on the water was almost all new. You might be familiar with the ship of Theseus, a thought experiment handed down to us from the Greek philosophers of long ago. According to legend, Theseus was the great founder of the city of Athens, and the people of Athens kept his ship in the city harbor and took it out on the water once a year for an annual religious pilgrimage in celebration of the city's founding. And after a few hundred years of maintaining the ship and replacing the planks one by one as they rotted away, some of the philosophers in town began to wonder, well, if every part of the ship has at some point been replaced, well, can we still call it Theseus's ship? Is it still even the same boat? Now, if you aren't embarking on an old-timey sailboat, the question of Theseus's ship might feel distant to you, although I just imagine that folks in the Portland area do this every weekend. Maybe that's not the case. This same question, though, it shows up in our spiritual lives. In my own spiritual community of Sanctuary Boston that Hillary mentioned, we begin every worship with words of welcome that say, whether you have been hurt by religion, saved by it, or some of both, we welcome you. And I suspect that for many of us here, our experience of religion has been some of both. And religions, by and large, they are a lot like old ships. They're passed down through the generations, constantly in need of maintenance and renovation. And religious conservatives will deny that renovations are ever necessary. But religious progressives understand that religion is always being updated, and that's what keeps them seaworthy and useful. When some folks say that they want to be spiritual but not religious, it might be because there is a dangerous amount of rot in the tradition they were born into. And there are 1,000 good reasons to want a clean break from institutional religion. I can certainly understand not wanting to renovate a leaky old boat that was built for another time, particularly because the work has to be done while you're already out at sea on life's voyage. But friends, the ocean isn't necessarily safer alone in a rowboat either. The role of tradition, as we heard, is to make present the wisdom of generations past. And our role is to apply tradition to the moment we're in for the task at hand, for nothing less than our survival and our liberation. I'll say this, I'm glad that I didn't try and spend 4 days on the ocean in a 150-year-old boat that hadn't replaced any parts since it was built. In fact, there probably aren't any boats still afloat that haven't made any updates in the last 150 years. And similarly, there aren't any religions around that haven't changed in the last 150 years either. One of my earliest memories of witnessing this kind of evolution of religious community was in my high school youth group. For the 4 years that I was in high school, my youth group was the touchstone of my week. I sometimes picture those years as trying to cross a stream where you have to jump from one rock to the next. And for me, my youth group, every Wednesday night, it was the landing on the earth, the landing on the rock before I made my leap into the air for the next week ahead. And every Wednesday night we'd gather and we would do a check-in that was absurdly long. I have this sense that other youth groups would do like activities or even have topics for discussion, but not for us. For us, it was just a really, really long check-in. And I loved it. That space to listen deeply and to speak to my people, it was liberating and it was soul-saving. But then, after I had graduated high school, I went off to college, and a year later, I came home for summer break, and I visited that youth group one Wednesday evening. And you are not going to believe this, but there were all these new people there. And these new people, these young people, who I didn't even know, well, they talked about the shallowest things all night long. I spent the whole evening mourning the loss of this once valuable group that had been so important, so helpful, thinking about how as soon as my generation had left, the whole thing had fallen into disrepair. And then at the end of the meeting, after 90 minutes of unspiritual, unmeaningful, and boring conversation, well, this one kid in the group, he says to everyone, he says, you know, this is the only place where I can really be myself. And if it wasn't for this place, if it wasn't for you all, I don't know what I would do. And at the time, I'll be honest with you, at the time I thought, kid, you don't even know what spiritual is. But today, with some distance, I wonder if maybe spiritual depth and real connection isn't always something you can see from the outside. And maybe the youth group had fallen into disrepair. Maybe it was only a fragment of its former self. But maybe, friends, even a fragment of unconditional love is still enough to transform somebody's world. Or maybe traditions evolve and cultures change, and growing up requires some openness to change, to considering that what worked for you isn't what will work for the next generation. Some people will tell you that holiday tradition is a thing that stays the same. Some religious people will tell you that a religious community is always a constant. Similarly, some love songs, for that matter, will tell you that a person never changes. Friends, it's all baloney. They're, every one of them, just Theseus's old ship. I recently had this feeling of the returning to visit the youth group even after you've aged out feeling. For as long as I can remember, my own UU tradition has been most clearly defined by our 7 principles. And I say as long as I can remember because, to my horror, I just learned this year that I am 3 years older than the 7 principles, which have served as the central beam, the serial number of our movement for 38 years. And these 7 principles have been enshrined in Article 2 of the UU Association's bylaws, but our association will likely vote to replace them this coming June. And I'll be honest, I was not a fan of this when I first heard the news. I have my own list of things I wish were different about my larger faith community of Unitarian Universalism. And in fact, most of my adult life has been pushing and pulling at this living tradition of ours. I've been trying to rebuild this creaky old boat in my own way for a long time now. So I was embarrassed to hear this voice, this all too familiar voice in my own heart of all places, saying, well, sure, I want change, but not this change. After wrestling with these feelings, though, and after the 14th Facebook post about it came across my feed, I decided to click the link and finally read the new proposal. And you know, most of the words proposed for the newly renovated bylaws were familiar. Words like interdependence and equity and justice. There was a new word that stuck out to me, though: transformation. It says we covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically. Openness to change, it says, is fundamental to our Unitarian and Universalist heritages. Never complete and never perfect. Changing our principles to state that we are open to change is a good change. And it is apparently a reminder I could use. There's one other part of that gaff-rigged sailboat that Captain Becky later mentioned might be original. The wood at the bottom of the hull, she said. The wood that is closest to the sea, because oxygen can't grow where there's water and no air, and so the wood there tends to last longer. And somehow it didn't surprise me that the part of the boat most central to keeping it afloat, which is, after all, a boat's most central purpose, it doesn't surprise me that those planks have staying power, even though they're hidden underneath, even though they're invisible to a tourist like me. Maybe what's important isn't always what's most visible when you first look at a tradition or a community or a person. There's another word being added to our UU values this year: the word love. Love wasn't in the principles before, or at least it wasn't visible above the waterline. It wasn't in writing, but maybe we could still feel it there underneath. Now it will be at the center where it belongs, keeping everything else afloat. I used to be captivated by this question of Theseus's ship. But now when I think of that old boat in the Athens harbor, I think it doesn't matter much if we call it Theseus's or not. What matters is that it is able to make the annual pilgrimage. What matters is that it's seaworthy. What matters is that each new generation is able to take what was handed down to them and make use of it for their own survival and our collective liberation. The important thing about a sacred text isn't winning an argument over what it was supposed to mean 1,000 years ago. The important thing is whether it makes you a more loving person this year. The important thing about a holiday tradition isn't whether we do it the same way this year as we did it a year ago. It's whether the sameness or differentness offers us some warmth and light in a season that can be cold and dark. Dear ones, if you've been hurt by the religion that raised you, know that it's okay to leave and make a clean break. And know also that it's okay to replace the rotten parts, all of them, even if that means that a sturdy beam at the center and some old planks down below are all that's left of the original. And if you have been saved by a religion that offered you at least a fragment of unconditional love, you needed it the most, hand that fragment down to the next person in whatever form they need it. Beloveds, may we make the ship anew as we sail it together, and may we grow together toward liberation and love. May it be so. Amen. Our closing song is Where You Go, I Will Go, Beloved. It goes like this.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go.
Can we try that whole part?
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go.
Again.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will.
Next part goes like this.
For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
Let's try that.
For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
I invite you to rise in body or spirit. Here we go.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go.
For your people.
For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
A little faster.
Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, where you go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. For your people are my people. Your people, they are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
You sound good.
Just a good ribbon song. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Matt. It was really nice to have you. Let's do some ribbons. Come on, let's get the ribbons out. That was great. Heart lifting. All right, well, following our service, Matt will be downstairs if you'd like to meet him and say hello. You'll also have your books if folks would like to check out copies of Desmond Gets Free. And before he plays us out with a postlude, will you join me in the words of our unison benediction? For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, May life return your affection. For those who come to seek a path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step. Go in peace, friend.